Hey everyone, it's your buddy back again with another exciting fanfic, which is what if Naruto was forced into a political marriage with Temari Part 2. If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. The new Team 7. Temari awoke to the strange room and for a moment forgot where she was until she remembered things. It never stopped being weird to wake up in another village. She had gotten up and looked at the clock and sighed. She woke up a bit earlier than she had meant to. Well, she wasn't going back to sleep. She got up and put on a robe and went to the bathroom. She noticed that Naruto's door was slightly open and she could hear the snoring inside of it. She knocked on his door. Naruto, you might as well get up. I'm taking the bathroom first, so stay the hell out, she warned him. Huh, Naruto muttered. I'll be using the bathroom first. She told him again as he muttered something as he yawned. Temari shrugged, hoping he remembered. The last thing she needed was for him to be too sleepy and walk in on her. She did her usual morning rituals and finished off with a nice long hot shower. That was one of the things she did like about this village. They were rich in water and you could shower at any time you wanted. That month she had spent in this village training during the exams, she had taken a shower every day. She loved how the hot water went over her body since in Suna water was always kept cold. But here she could enjoy the heated water. It was one of the few pleasures she liked about her new life. She finished up and walked out just in time to see a sleepy Naruto walking towards her. She blinked mainly at the sight of something on his head. What the hell is that? She asked him, staring at the nightcap on his head. It was some black and white monstrosity that looked like some kind of animal head with two large teeth. She didn't think that a ninja his age would even have something like that. What's wrong with it? Naruto asked, looking up, seeing where she was looking. Iruka-sensei gave this to me when I was younger. Oh, sorry, it's just really strange to see someone with it, she said. He sounded very offended that she had said something against it, and the fact that it was a gift from someone Temari figured it had sentimental value to him. Anyway, bathroom is all yours. Alright. He yawned and then he noticed something about her. She was only in a robe and her blonde hair was slicked down. She didn't have her hair up in those pigtails of hers, and he blinked a few times. This was the closest he had been to a girl that had so little on. He knew that he shouldn't, but he wondered if she was wearing underwear or not. He also noticed she actually looked kind of nice with her hair like that. He started to form a slight blush. Temari noticed how he was looking at her. She wasn't used to people looking at her with that kind of look. She had seen boys give her an interesting look, that is, until it was known who her family was, and then they pretty much ran off. She felt a slight heat in her cheeks as she felt a bit too exposed with so little clothing than just her robe. What are you looking at? She snapped out of reflex. Ah, sorry, I mean nothing, I'm going to the bathroom. Naruto said quickly and ran off to it. He closed the door behind him, wondering what the hell was going on with him. He was still thinking about it when he was in the shower. Why did I start looking at her like that? He thought to himself. Okay, yeah, she is kind of pretty, and nice legs, no bad thoughts. Besides, I liked Sakura-chan, don't I? But I can't be with Sakura-chan ever now. He looked down, depressed. Ever since that day he accepted his fate, he had been trying to overcome his feelings for his teammate, but it wasn't easy. He had liked her for years and you just don't get over that, but he had been trying. He sighed as he finished up his shower and got dressed, although breakfast that day was a bit awkward between the two of them. When they arrived at the Hokage's office, they found the rest of their team along with Temari's brother. Both of them walked up to the woman's desk as Tsunade cleared her throat. She wasn't one for ceremony, so she wanted to get through this. Besides, there was a lot of paperwork piling up, and if she ever wanted to get through it all, she couldn't afford to linger on this. Temari, Tsunade said, putting on her official Hokage look and voice. Do you accept your role as a leaf ninja? Will you give your life for the mission, and for the safety of the village? Do you swear by the will of fire to your allegiance to us for the rest of your days? Temari knew that if she spoke up, she couldn't take back what she answered. Saying no would cause lots of trouble, but if she said yes, it would mean that if she ever went back on her word, she would be hunted down and killed as a traitor. But she really had no option. I swear it, on my life, my honor and my blood. Tsunade nodded and pushed the paper to her. Temari signed the paper as the Hokage stamped it, making her an official Leaf Genin. Tsunade handed it off as Shizune signed it as a witness and then went to file it. Tsunade then pulled out a leaf hit 8 and passed it to the younger blonde. Temari took it and looked at it for a moment. It was strange to think she had to wear this as before she had proudly worn her Suna symbol. She took a breath and slowly undid her own hit 8 around her neck. She ran her thumb over the symbol there, sad that she would never again wear it. She looked to Baki and put her hand out for him to take it. Baki shook his head. Keep it, as a reminder of your past and of your history. Temari gave a thankful smile to him as she placed it in her pocket. Then she tied on the new hit 8 around her neck. Even though it was basically the same thing with only a different symbol on it, it still felt weird to her. Now then, Tsunade said, getting everyone's attention, the wedding itself will be in 3 months, on the 22nd. I figure that will be given enough time for Naruto and Temari to at least get to know each other a bit more. Baki, you and Temari's brothers are welcome to visit at any time, of course, and are invited along with any officials that I just know will want to butt into this whole thing at the wedding. Baki nodded to her, and he too knew of a few members of the council would want to attend. Are there any questions? The Hokage asked, looking around. I have one, Temari said. What are the duties that all have to do? Tsunade was impressed the girl had thought of that, and by the confused looks for Naruto and Sakura, it was a good thing that Temari hadn't been less vague. The council agrees that they can't for the issue until you both are both mature. However, they did want me to tell you that anything before they feel the time is right is up to you. Tsunade said. Temari nodded in understanding. She knew that she would have to produce at least one child, but it was nice to know that they wouldn't totally force her to have sex. She didn't feel ready for that, and she got the feeling that Naruto wasn't either with the way he acted. But she had time to put it off at least. She was lucky, as when this had happened in the past there were times when the female or male was to produce a child as soon as they could. Well then, if that's all, you can all go now. Kakashi, I'll want an evaluation of Temari with your team as soon as you can get it done, Tsunade told him. With that, everyone left her office so she could get back to work, or sneak in a small drink of sake if she could get to it before Shizune got back with more of the dreaded paperwork. While outside the Hokage Tower, Temari was talking with her old team. So how long are you all going to be staying? She asked them. At least for another day or so, Baki told her. It is a long trip back and we might as well rest up and resupply. Hey Temari, Naruto said to her, why don't you spend some time with them before they go? Temari blinked, surprised at his generosity. You sure? Sure, why not? He grinned at her. He knew that she would miss her family a lot, so he figured that she should spend some time with them too. After all, they didn't know where they would meet them next, so he wanted her to spend as much time as she could. Thanks, Temari told him. Well, first I want to see what Temari can do with some light training, Kakashi said, thinking about things. How about after that I'll give you all the afternoon off and Temari here can spend time with her brothers and teacher. Sounds good to me, Kankuro said. I was looking into some material that I can't get in Suna for a new project of mine anyway. How about you, Gaara? It's fine with me, Gaara told them. Good then, Temari, you can meet them later after training then at their hotel, Kakashi said as both teams said their goodbyes as Team 7 went to their training area. Team 7 training grounds. Temari looked around the grounds. It was a lot different than what she was used to. There was more cover and water nearby, not to mention all the trees. The grass could take a little getting used to at first since sand was a harder surface to fight on. But all in all, it wasn't so bad so far, although she still wasn't sure about her teammates. The Uchiha boy looked totally as arrogant as ever. It was a shame that the pretty boy had to be so cold. He could have any girl in the village if he wasn't. Although from the attitude and looks that the pink-haired girl was giving him was starting to make her sick. Fangirl Kunoichi were the ones that gave female ninja like her a bad name. Even that girl that Temari had beaten in her Chunin match had been more professional. Their teacher, however, was just strange. He always seemed to wear that mask and she was starting to think he had some kind of scarring. At least that's why she assumed Baki always hid half his face, so maybe this Jonin had damage to his lower face. Kakashi looked over his team. Although this was highly unusual to have 4 genin, but he was actually looking forward to it. It would be a unique challenge, although he would have to step up his training with the team though. The thought of the things that Tsunade could do if he slacked off too much wasn't pleasant. He was also wondering how Naruto and Temari were doing. So far they seemed okay, although not very close, but he wasn't expecting them to be all over each other after one day. Well then, let's start off by introducing each other to Temari. Kakashi said, smiling under his mask. I know we all did this on our first day, but I want her to hear it, and I also want you to list any skills you think you should let her know as well, so when she does it we can all get an idea of each other's abilities. Kakashi looked to Sasuke as the boy prodigy rolled his eyes. He couldn't believe that he had to go through this whole thing again. Sasuke Uchiha, I only have two goals in life. First is to restore my clan and the other is to kill a certain man. I can do a few fire jutsus, Chidori, my family style of taijutsu, some wire work and Fuma shuriken. He simply said in a bored tone. Alright, Sakura, Kakashi asked. Sakura gave a small nod. Sakura Hanero, I like my friends, I'm happy that I'm repairing my friendship with Ino, I want to become a stronger ninja as well, until recently I realized I need to be stronger. I don't really have any of my own jutsus other than the academy ones. Sakura felt embarrassed to admit this, but the Chunin exams had shown her that she had a long way to go to catch up to her teammates. As for my hopes and dreams other than being a stronger ninja, I hope that one day I can get the boy that I like to notice me. She gave a hopeful look at Sasuke but sighed in defeat when she saw him not even looking at her. Kakashi had to admit that Sakura had grown some since that first day. Maybe if she was willing to work so hard he could help her in her training a bit more. He then looked at Naruto and gave him a nod. Alright, time for me. Naruto shouted out. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen, training, my friends. I hate people who look down on others and can't see beyond the surface. And my dream is to be the greatest Hokage ever to have lived. Temari hadn't known that Naruto had such high aims for his ninja career. She wasn't sure if it was laughable or not. On the one hand, he wasn't the sharpest kunai in the bunch, but she also couldn't deny his combat skills or power. My skills include shadow clones, sexy jutsu. This earned him a glare from Sakura, and Temari was wondering what the hell that move was, as she never heard of anything like that before. I also can summon and I know Rasengan. Wait, what was that, Naruto? Kakashi asked him, surprised. Huh, the last two, Kakashi said again. When did you learn those? Oh, I learned summoning from Arrow Sennin during the Chunin exams training month. I can vouch for the summons, I saw him use it against my brother, Temari said. Wait, who is Arrow Sennin? Sakura asked Naruto, never hearing that and not sure she wanted to know with a name like that. He means, Jiraiya of the Sannin, Kakashi told her. Sakura's eyes widened. She remembered the stories, as he was one of the strongest ninja in the world and one of the 3 members of the legendary trio of ninja from her village. Tsunade was one and that snake freak Orochimaru had been the other. Yeah, that's Arrow Sennin, Naruto said. Naruto, show some respect, Sakura said, bobbing him on the head. Don't call someone that. It's amazing that Tsunade-sama doesn't kill you every time you call her Ba-chan. But he's a pervert, Naruto said and got another hit to the head. Thankfully she wasn't hitting him as hard as she used to. She had toned down the hits lately, although if he really pissed her off then they went to full force, but she hadn't done that lately. Temari just couldn't understand why Naruto took it. He was obviously stronger than the others, but he just took it. Although she had to admit that Naruto did need a lesson in manners, so she would let Sakura administer any punishment as long as the girl didn't go too far, but she looked like she knew what she was doing. Hey, don't blame me, he actually admitted to being a pervert when we first met. I caught him peeping on the women's hot springs, and he's the guy that writes those books that Kakashi-sensei reads all the time, Naruto said, explaining to her. Sakura blinked a few times. She couldn't believe that one of the most legendary ninja alive would do that kind of stuff, but she knew that when she pushed, Naruto couldn't lie to her. If she was angry with him, he always told the truth to get out of getting hit, but she had thought that a legendary ninja was supposed to be more respectable. He writes what? Temari asked, looking at Kakashi. The man shrugged and pulled out his copy of Ika Ika Paradise, and Temari's eyes narrowed. She had seen those books in Suna Hell. Konkuro had the collection in his room even. She once took a look at those things thinking they were just some story. She was in for a surprise when she got halfway through the first chapter and the main characters were going at it like a bunch of rabbits. Temari looked at Sakura. I think you owe him an apology, given all that. I think the guy deserves to be called that. Sakura thought about it and looked to Naruto. Sorry, Naruto. He just shrugged it off with a grin. Anyways, please continue where you left off, Kakashi told Naruto. The genin thought about what else he had learned and he smiled brightly. Oh yeah, while I was looking for Ba-chan he also trained me in Rasengan. He said grinning. Wait, you learned that in a month? Kakashi asked Naruto, who nodded. I have to say, Naruto, that's very impressive. Why is that, Kakashi-sensei? What's a Rasengan? Sakura asked the tall scarecrow as Sasuke himself looked interested. It's a technique created by the fourth Hokage, Kakashi told them, all surprise written on their faces other than Naruto, of course. You see, it took him 4 years to create it. Also, it took Jiraiya-sama over 3 months for him to learn it. The fact that Naruto did it in one is mind-blowing. Naruto, can you use it so I can see just how well you've developed it? Naruto grinned hugely. It was nice for Kakashi to finally notice him like this, and for once he felt great with this kind of attention. He first formed a shadow clone and with his help he started to gather up the chakra. Kakashi had to admit that was a unique way of creating the Rasengan, although already he could see that Naruto needed to improve in order to do it one-handed. But for a young boy like him to be able to use it along was impressive. Sakura and Temari had never seen anything like it before. The chakra was actually visible. Temari couldn't believe that the boy was actually stronger than the last time she met him, and that was only 2 months ago. Just how much stronger will he get? Temari began to wonder. At this rate he might actually become Hokage one day. Sasuke stared at it. There were no hand seals to it, so how did Naruto do it? There was no way that the dead last at the academy had learned something as advanced as that in a month. Naruto felt the ball of chakra ready and ran forward to a tree, Rasengan. The result was the tree being obliterated as well as the ground in front of it and behind the tree as it was blown to pieces like a cannon hit it. Naruto turned around grinning, happy with this new technique of his. I have to admit I'm very impressed, Kakashi said, looking at him with some pride. If I had known you could master that move in a month I would have helped train you in it when I was training Sasuke. How could you do that? Naruto asked him. Kakashi chuckled. Naruto, who do you think was my sensei? Kakashi then held out a hand as everyone was surprised to see Kakashi form a Rasengan of his own. He taught me just like he taught Jiraiya-sama. Although I wish it had taken me a month like you actually beat me at that. Naruto was grinning ear to ear now. But I could still do it one-handed, so you might need more work on yours, so you don't need a shadow clone. Kakashi told him, making the boy face fault at that. You should know it was training with the Rasengan that led me to create the Chidori. Kakashi was still very proud of Naruto's skills so far. He had a good guess at what the boy could summon, but he would do that later. He was glad that Naruto had gotten so strong. He hadn't wanted to just ignore him in the Chunin exams, but the things was that Sasuke needed it more. While Naruto was up against Neji, if he won or lost the boy would still be alive. If Sasuke had gone up against Gaara without being properly prepared he would have died. So if Sasuke had defeated Gaara, then Naruto would have faced Sasuke most likely in the end, and there was no way that Naruto would be killed in that. Of course, if Sasuke had still lost and died, then he would have told Naruto to forfeit. There was no shame in that, and if he had lost one student he didn't want to lose another. It had been a calculating risk, plus there was no one else he could train Naruto other than who he had picked, and there had been no time to teach him anything new, at least he thought there hadn't been time. It would seem that he would have to pay a bit more attention to see what Naruto's true skills were. Kakashi then turned to Temari. Well then, let's not forget our newest teammate. Temari blinked, forgetting that she was supposed to do the whole intro thing too. They had gotten sidetracked, but so far she had learned a couple of more details about Naruto. So she took a breath and decided to get out with it. You all know my name, so I'll skip that, Temari said bluntly. I like training, barbecue, salads, and light music. I loved my village despite certain events, and I guess I'll try and do the same for this one. My dream has always been to become one of the strongest kunoichi in the world, so I guess my new life won't interfere with that. I was looking forward to healing the rift between my brothers and me, but she trailed off as she might have to give up on that dream. Naruto looked down at the ground, feeling a bit responsible for her. He wished that she didn't have to be separated from her family like she was, but both of them had no way of getting around it. Anyways, Temari said, shaking herself out of it. As for abilities, I use my fan for a lot of them, but I'm pretty good at taijutsu as well. I can summon as well as I hold the weasel contract, but I usually only use the one summon animal so far. My jutsus are Cutting Whirlwind and the stronger version Great Cutting Whirlwind, Dust Wind Technique, and also Wind Release, Severing Pressure. Kakashi mulled that over for a bit from what he remembered of her fight against Tenten. Tell me, Temari, are you a wind-natured element user? Of course, how else can I use wind chakra? Temari asked him, looking at him like he was an idiot. What's wind chakra? Naruto asked. Naruto, didn't you pay any attention to Iruka-sensei at all in the academy? Sakura chided him. There are 5 elements in ninjutsu and people usually have an affinity to one. Although you can have secondary affinities, these tend to be weaker though, and usually you'd only find 1, maybe 2 other secondary affinities. Kakashi nodded. Exactly, Temari, I can assume you're wind-natured. Myself, I'm lightning, but I have secondary affinities to fire and water. I can use others, but they are very hard to do even if I copy them. That's one of the weaknesses to the Sharingan. Even if you copied something, you can't use it to its full potential all the time. It's why even though I know a lot of jutsu, you only see me use a few element types. If I force to use something that I have no affinity with, it increases the drain on my chakra. Although there are 2 main uses for advanced chakra use, one is element nature like we've been talking about, but the other is shape, which is what Naruto has learned with the Rasengan. Kakashi looked at the blonde genin. So if I learn element nature, I'll get both types? Naruto asked. Kakashi nodded and Naruto's eyes lit up at the thought. Cool. So how can I find out what element I am? Kakashi-sensei, do you think I could learn as well? Sakura asked. She was feeling pretty left out. Temari was the newest addition and she was already way ahead of her. Plus she needed to learn more of her own stuff as she had vowed to become stronger. Kakashi pulled out 2 pieces of paper. Okay, then it's a good thing I brought these with me. These are special papers that have been used with trees raised up specifically to make this paper. Just take one and put some chakra into it and it will tell you what kind of affinity you have. Naruto and Sakura both took a piece as they closed their eyes and put in some chakra. Sakura opened her eyes to see that her paper got all wet. Kakashi looked at it and told her she had a water affinity. Naruto looked at his puzzled as he held up his as it was split down the center. Well, Naruto, looks like you and Temari have something in common, you're both wind users. Kakashi said to him. Really? Naruto looked at Temari. The older girl was surprised that he had wind chakra since it was a rare type. Kakashi smiled at them. Well then, Temari, I hope you can help train Naruto in wind chakra since you'll be better at this than me. I don't know much about that type, but since you're already using it, you can easily teach Naruto. And Naruto, just so you know, if you master both types, the shape and elemental, you can merge them to create very powerful jutsus, but I highly suggest that you perfect both before you even attempt that. No problem, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said as he was eager to learn wind elemental chakra. It would mean that he could make some really powerful jutsus in the future. It would also put him above Sasuke as well, and to him that was another reason to do this. So then, let's get to some training, shall we? Kakashi said to them all. He started off with the basics to see where they were, tree walking, a light taijutsu sparring as well. He put up Naruto with Sasuke and the boys were just as eager to go at it, more so Sasuke for some reason. Sakura and Temari, well, it had been pretty one-sided, but he had seen in more depth the kind of fighting that Temari did. It seemed to him that she mainly used her fan and didn't use hand-to-hand all that much, although she was still above Sakura in that department. They had them each use a jutsu that they listed off as well. He was impressed with Temari's abilities. She was the perfect long to medium range fighter, something they were missing in their team. Sakura, he noticed, seemed to be getting depressed as she watched the other members of the team, and he sighed knowing that the young girl was most likely feeling like the weak link in the team. He hadn't realized just how far behind she had gotten. Didn't she study in her time off or train like the other boys did? Maybe he should have a talk with her about taking her training more seriously soon. Now that he knew her element, maybe he could figure out a few techniques that would be good for her as well. Tension. The training with Team 7 was going well in Kakashi's opinion. By the end of the first day he had pretty much gathered most of what he needed. Temari was definitely a very highly skilled kunoichi for her age and could see why she was picked for this whole affair. She was weak in close range combat though, but that was easy to work on and that was what the rest of the team was for. He had noticed that Sakura had been pushing herself harder than normal, which was good to see, and he was wondering if it was because of their new teammate. At any rate, it was getting late and noticed that they were starting to tire. Alright everyone, that's enough for today, Kakashi said as they all stopped their training. I'll see you all here tomorrow at 9 for missions and then training afterwards. As the team members started to file out, he noticed that Sasuke was walking towards him. He had a feeling what the genin wanted and he was starting to worry about it. Sasuke walked right up to Kakashi and looked up at the Jonin teacher. You said that you know how to use the Rasengan, right? The Uchiha Avenger asked. Yes and no, I'm not teaching you it, Kakashi told him, and he could see the anger there in the boy's eyes. Why not? You taught me the Chidori and I can use something like that Rasengan thing, Sasuke told him, although he also thought that an idiot like Naruto shouldn't have a stronger technique than him. He was the prodigy in the class while Naruto had been the dead last. He had no idea when or how Naruto kept getting so much stronger, but he needed to keep ahead of the annoying blonde. Naruto is a special case, Kakashi told him. He couldn't just come out and say it was because of who Naruto's father was or because of what was sealed inside of the boy. Sasuke didn't like that word that Kakashi had used, unfortunately. Special. There's nothing special about him, he's an annoying loudmouth and an idiot. Why the hell should he get a jutsu like that anyway? He doesn't need it. I have to become stronger to kill Itachi and I won't be held back. Kakashi could see that the young boy wasn't taking this well. Sasuke, you're very strong as it is. I already taught you my only original jutsu. You're faster and stronger than you were before the Chunin exams as well. Although I didn't approve of you stealing Lee's movements, but we've already talked about that. During the training month, Kakashi had seen the boy use moves that only Guy or a student of his would know. When he asked him, the boy admitted to copying Lee's movements from earlier, and Kakashi had taken the boy aside and gave him a lecture on how it was improper to use the Sharingan against allies. That was one of the reasons many had a dislike for certain Uchiha members. When you trained as often, someone just walks in and copies your hard work in a blink of an eye, resentments easily followed. Look, the only way you'll learn the Rasengan is if Naruto trains you in it. If you ask him and he agrees to do it, Kakashi told him. Sasuke scowled at the thought. There was no way the dead last of the class could teach him, the last of the Uchiha, anything. The idea of even asking him for help in any kind of training was laughable and an insult to him as well. Naruto wasn't something special and he sure as hell couldn't train him to do anything. Then why can't you train me in another type of shaping then? Sasuke asked him. Kakashi sighed. Sasuke, I've already given you lots of training. I've even ignored some of the progress of the others just for you and I can't keep doing it. What he didn't mention was that he also did it to keep Sasuke from being killed by Gaara and also to keep him away from Orochimaru. He eyed that mark that was just inside of his shirt collar. It didn't look like the seal he had put on the boy was weakening, but he was starting to worry about the boy. Ever since he woke up from Itachi using that technique on him again, he had been colder and more distant. All that progress they had made seemed to be falling apart, and Kakashi was running out of ways to keep the team together. Not that Kakashi could entirely blame the boy. After 3 days of being put on a cross and being cut over and over again by Itachi, Kakashi didn't want to go through something like that again anytime soon. Although Kakashi had an idea of what Sasuke had seen in those 3 days of his own. Maybe he should see if he could get Sasuke some help. The boy never talked about his problems as he just kept them bottled up inside, and the Jonin could see it was eating the boy up inside. But then again, who was Kakashi to judge either? For years he left the deaths of Obito and Rin and everyone else he cared for weigh on his shoulders. He went to the memorial stone all the time just staring at all the names he knew from over the years. Although Obito was always the name he looked at first and for the longest. Maybe I should take my own advice sometime, Kakashi thought to himself as he internally sighed. Sasuke, you're already very strong as it is. one of the strongest genin around, and in time you will only get stronger, but you need to learn patience. You can't just become stronger overnight, it takes lots of heart, and you can't expect to just be handed everything all the time. With that, Sasuke turned around and walked off, angered that Kakashi wouldn't teach him. He couldn't understand it. He was the top of the class and better than any ninja in his age group, even older ninja. Besides, he needed to be stronger. After all the training he had done, when he had gone up against his brother, he had been swatted away like a fly. Then there were those eyes of his brother, those uncaring eyes. You don't hate enough. His older brother's words ran in his ears before he went through 3 days of hell watching his family and clan being killed over and over again. His fists clenched so hard that his nails were biting hard enough into his palms to draw out a little blood. They don't understand. None of them understood, Sasuke thought as he walked back to the empty Uchiha district. He looked around at all the empty buildings. He remembered when they were filled with his clan, but they were falling into disrepair. Even the old police station was now used by Anbu now. He remembered when these streets were alive with people, adults and children playing. Sometimes he could still remember the sounds of life on this road, but not anymore. They were as silent as a tomb for years now. None of them can understand the loss I've suffered, Sasuke darkly thought as he walked through the streets. I only have my vengeance in life. I've spent all this time to get stronger and I'm still too weak. I need to be stronger or I'll never kill him, my clan will never be avenged, and I'll never find any kind of peace. He still had nightmares of that night, especially lately. He stopped looking around as his hatred grew and grew. He remembered the kindness of his mother, and his father had finally taken notice of him. He had mastered that fire jutsu after all that hard work. His father was finally going to train him, but then his older brother killed them all. He still couldn't stand to be in the room where his parents had been killed. He knew that the blood had been cleaned up, but he knew what had happened in that room. I swear no matter what I will get stronger, Sasuke vowed to himself and to the dead ghosts that haunted these buildings. I will get stronger and kill Itachi, no matter what I will. I don't care if his village is holding me back, I will find a way to get stronger. He grunted out, feeling the seal on his neck flared up. He felt the cold sweat on his brow as he fought it back, although for a moment he remembered a bit of what it felt like to use it. He had felt powerful, more powerful than he had ever felt, but he had been warned about using it. He remembered how hard his match in the Chunin exams had been because of it, but maybe there was a way of mastering it. There had to be a way to use the seal and stay in control. He started to slowly grin at the thought of that. Little did he know that he was being watched by a pair of eyes in the shadows. How much longer are we going to wait? A voice said. Yeah, this if fucking annoying, a female said. Shut it. We were to check on his progress, and until we get the word from Lord Orochimaru we won't approach him until the time is right, said a deeper voice. Fine, but I just hope it's not too long, the final figure said, being very bored. Naruto and Temari. The two genins were walking their way to where her brothers were located. Mainly Naruto was just walking with her to make sure she knew the way, and also because he wanted to talk to Gaara again. He wasn't sure why, but he could tell that the boy had gone through a change, and that was good. Gaara was a lot like him in so many ways, and it would be nice to make a friend that knew what it was like to have a demon locked up inside of you and how people treated someone like that. So what did you think of the team? Naruto asked, trying to make conversation. It's different, Temari told him. The pink-haired girl needs to train a hell of a lot more, that's for sure, and the Uchiha needs to get that stick out of his too. At that, Naruto started laughing. Finally someone that feels the same way. I mean, all the girls are all over him, it's always Sasuke-kun this or Sasuke-kun that, man, I don't get what's so cool about him. Well, he is pretty good looking and he's got that dark mysterious things going for him, she remarked, remembering her first time seeing him. She noticed the scowl on the other blonde and she had to admit, it was kind of cute if a bit childish. But he's got no real personality. That's for sure, Naruto muttered. I've been trying to get him to lighten up for a long time, but mostly he just ignores it. I mean, I once put exploding paint bombs in the teacher's lounge and everyone but Sasuke had laughed when the teachers were in all kinds of different colors for the rest of the day. You did what? Temari looked at him surprised. She couldn't believe he had done something like that. If she had tried something like that, her father would have been so angry with her she didn't want to think about what he would have done. Oh, I've done a lot more than that, he chuckled. I used to do lots of pranks all the time. Why? Naruto thought about it. Well, sometimes it was to get back at people who weren't nice to me, sometimes it was to get people to notice me, other times it was just fun. I mean, haven't you ever pulled something over someone? I'm Akage's daughter. I can't be seen doing childish things, she told him, remembering her own childhood. Her father was a very strict upbringing. She hadn't allowed to do a lot of what younger girls were allowed to do because she had to keep up a proper appearance. Man, that's too bad, you missed out on a lot of fun, I bet, Naruto told her with his arms behind his head. So what? She snapped. We're not children anymore, so it's pointless. Oh, come on, you're never too old to have fun, he said, but she wasn't talking at that moment. He grunted and started thinking about her. She was way too serious at times. A slow smile started to form on his face. If she was too serious, then there was only one thing to do with that. He had to show her a good time and make her have fun. If he could do that, then maybe she would be a little less stiff with everyone. Hey Temari, a voice called out as Naruto looked up to see her brothers and their sensei. Kankuro, Gaara, Baki-sensei, Temari said, nodding to them. So how did training go? Baki asked his former student. It went all right, I suppose, she said with a shrug. Baki nodded and cast a glance over at Naruto, who was making his way over to Gaara. So things are going well with him. He's not what you'd expect. Are you sure of the reasons you were giving as to why the council chose him? Temari asked her old teacher. She had been made aware before she came as to why the Suna council chose Naruto as her future husband. Although she did agree that he was very strong, but given what she had learned from just a few days of being around him so much, she wasn't sure just how close her counsel was to the actual truth. Are you saying that they were wrong about him? Baki asked, concerned. I'm not sure I know how strong he is. In fact, he's actually gotten stronger with learning a move of their fourth Hokage in only a month, but as for him being some kind of secret weapon, I'm not seeing it. Baki nodded and put that information away for the moment. Even if the council made a small error, the boy was very strong in his own right. Hey Gaara, how have you been? Naruto smiled at the red-headed boy. Gaara looked a little unsure. He never had anyone actually be nice to him, and not all that long ago they were trying to kill one another, or at least he had been trying to kill the blonde. But it was also Naruto that had opened his eyes, and truth be told, he felt better about himself a lot lately too. I've been well, Gaara said to him in that same neutral tone, although there was a hint of something different. There was no menace in his voice anymore, and Naruto smiled at the sound of that. Naruto wasn't getting that creepy vibe off him anymore, and the boy could just tell that Gaara really had changed. He could see it in Gaara's eyes the most. They were still hard eyes, but no longer had that hint of madness to them. Naruto gave that usual foxy grin at him. That's good to hear. I think I'll like having you for a brother. Gaara didn't know what to say to that. He was still getting used to feeling things, and although it was strange, the feeling he was getting felt nice. Gaara nodded his head as he too felt that having him as a brother, or at least a brother-in-law, would be nice. The boy was just like him, and Gaara felt less alone in the world now. Kankuro blinked, looking as his younger brother and Naruto started talking. Well, Naruto did most of the talking as he told Gaara all about the day so far. He looked back to Temari and Baki, who looked on as Naruto was totally at ease with Gaara, and Gaara actually seemed a bit more relaxed as well. What the hell? Kankuro asked silently to them both. How the hell does he just talk to him like that after everything, and Gaara actually seems to like the guy? Temari just watched, but a small smile formed on her lips seeing Naruto act out the day's events in exaggerated motions as Gaara watched on. Unless you know Gaara very well, you couldn't pick up on his subtle moods, and Temari could see that her youngest brother was actually enjoying himself. It was just the way Gaara carried himself, it was less stiff and relaxed. She remembered how much that Naruto had gone through to make her comfortable, and it dawned on her that despite his more annoying traits, deep down he was actually a nice guy. This was the first time she had seen someone actually try and reach out to her little brother like that. So are we going to eat of what? Kankuro asked, bored after a while. Oh hey, I know the best place to eat. Naruto smiled largely and looked to Gaara. Hey, you like ramen? Temari rolled her eyes. She had figured out just how much of a ramen freak he was, and although she liked it herself, Naruto wanted to eat it all the time. But seeing Naruto and Gaara together, maybe it would be good for Gaara to spend a bit more time with him. Well, I guess so, Temari said as the others didn't have anything against it. Naruto was all smiles as he led them to his most favorite spot to eat in the whole world. The Ichiraku Ramen Bar, ran by Tyuki and his daughter Ayame. Naruto hadn't eaten there in a while given how busy he was lately, so he was eager to hurry up and eat his fill. Plus, with the new pay he was getting from Tsunade, his frog-looking wallet, Gama-chan, was a nice large shape. He led them through the streets as they came to the stand with the drapes over it as Naruto ducked his head under the cloth. Hey old man, I need at least 5 bowls of miso ramen. Naruto called out as he sat on his favorite stool. Naruto-kun, we haven't seen you in a while. Ayame smiled at him as her father got the order ready. Then she noticed the others coming in. Oh, hello. Welcome to Ichiraku Ramen, what will you take? They gave their orders as the father and daughter team went to work on things. Well, it smells good so far, Baki said out loud. Yeah, they serve the best ramen in the world here. Naruto grinned as he couldn't wait for his first bowl. Tyuki laughed as he got the noodles ready. Thanks for the free advertising, Naruto, and that's one of the reasons you're our #1 customer. So are you friends of Naruto-kun? Ayame asked them. Actually Temari here is, Naruto wasn't sure how to go about it. He had told them of what was going on with him a while back, but he hadn't mentioned names to them. I'm Temari, the blonde female said. I'm Naruto's fiancé. That caused both cooks to pause for a second. They hadn't known who was going to marry Naruto, although the old ramen cook had to admit the girl was pretty if a little serious. Ayame, however, went right into Temari's face, nearly making the newly made leaf genin pull back a bit in her seat. Oh, so you're the one that he's told us about. Ayame looked the girl over and it was making Temari a little uncomfortable. Please take care of Naruto-kun, he's a really nice guy and he could use someone in his life, plus maybe you can help keep him out of trouble. Nei-chan, Naruto said, embarrassed. Kankuro chuckled at the look on the boy's face. Shut it, makeup boy. What did you call me? Kankuro shouted out. This is war paint for your information. I think it's really makeup. After all, you dress up like a cat and play with dolls. Naruto said, crossing his arms. They're not dolls. The puppet user said in the defense of his beloved puppets. Temari couldn't stop a snickering escaping from her mouth. This wasn't the first time someone said this to her brother, although not this blatantly before. She also noticed that Gaara had a slight twitch on the side of his mouth for a second. She was surprised that Gaara had nearly smiled at that. Oh, I think playing with dolls is cute, Ayame smiled. And it shows you're really comfortable in your own masculinity to wear makeup. Kankuro just sat there with his mouth open. He then slumped down into his seat sulking. Being insulted by the blonde loudmouth was bad enough, but now the pretty girl behind the counter was getting in on it too. Hell, even his sister often said that was why he couldn't get a date. They started to eat up once the orders were ready. They were surprised by just how much Naruto could eat. As they started to eat up, Temari got to know the 2 ramen stand workers. They seemed fairly nice and they seemed to really like Naruto as well, and the ramen wasn't bad either. By the time they left, Temari had to admit that the place, while not fancy, was still kind of nice. And with how much Naruto spent, it was little wonder why he was their #1 customer. Now that's what I call a good meal, Naruto said, patting his stomach. So far he had to admit that things were going well. He was getting along with Temari and her brothers and former teacher. Although he kept trying to sneak a look under that half of Baki's face that was covered, honestly, why did some ninja have to hide their faces? He got enough of that with Kakashi. Although Naruto was having such a good time that he wasn't watching where he was going, and when they turned the corner he nearly slammed into someone. Hey, careful Naruto. Naruto snapped out of his thoughts as he nearly ran into Tenten. Oh man, sorry about that Tenten, he said, and then noticed that she was with Neji and Lee on his crutches. Hey Neji, hey there fuzzy brows. Naruto-kun, it is very youthful to see you again. Lee smiled at him but then noticed that his 2 friends weren't as happy. In fact, they were looking at Naruto's companions, especially to Gaara. Lee locked eyes with the red-headed genin that had put him into this condition and said boy stared back. Naruto looked at both groups and swallowed nervously. there was a lot of bad blood between the two groups. First there was how badly Tenten lost to Temari, then there had been what Gaara had done to Lee. He was hoping that a fight wouldn't break out as things had been going to great today. But given his luck he should have known that something would ruin things. To say there was tension was like saying that Jiraiya was a pervert. Tenten took a hard look at Temari but she had promised not to start anything with her. But Gaara on the other hand, she had seen how bad Lee had taken to his injuries at first and what the boy had done in the Chunin exams had been out of line in her opinion. Neji had his usual cold look on, although if you were to look more closely you could see that his eyes were a little colder than his face. He too was thinking the same things as Tenten about Gaara. Although he knew that the other boy was very strong, if he tried to hurt his teammate again he would take him down as fast and as hard as he could. There was a heavy silence and then Gaara of all people walked towards Lee. Everyone tensed up as the boy got close to the green-clad genin. Gaara looked at the injuries that he had caused when he had been less than stable. Lee had given him one of the best battles in his young life, had pushed Gaara to his limits, but in the end Gaara had not only beat Lee, he had taken away his ability as a ninja by the looks of it. He had tried to kill the boy until that older green-clad ninja jumped in the way and had stopped his sand. He remembered how the man had said that Lee was important to him and at that time he couldn't understand that. But now he did understand what the man had meant that day, and he also understood the full impact of what he had done. This was one of Naruto's friends and he had hurt Lee very badly. It left a bad feeling in the pit of his stomach. He hadn't felt that emotion since he was a little child when his sand would go out and hurt a child by accident. Gaara remembered getting medicine and offering it to the boy, but that had not worked out as he had hoped. Now looking at Lee he felt that same emotions all over again. He looked into Lee's eyes and said something that no one expected him to say. "I'm sorry," Gaara told him. Everyone blinked in surprise, although Lee grew a small smile on his face. "You don't have to do that," Lee smiled at him. "What? Lee well he crippled you." Tenten shouted at him. "I know, but we are ninja. In our line of work we enter battle knowing that something like this could happen or that we can die," Lee said with his full resolve in his voice. "I could have quit that match at any moment, but I wanted to push myself to my limits, maybe even beyond my limits. We all knew that the Chunin exams were dangerous when we entered as a team and I was fully prepared to die for my nindo." Lee looked to Gaara again. "You are one of the strongest people I know and it was an honor to fight you, and I hope to do it again." "What?" Gaara asked, surprised as was everyone else there. Lee gave Gaara a thumbs up with a smile. "Lady Tsunade has said that she is looking into my condition. I am sure that with her help I'll heal, and when I do I hope we can have a friendly rematch one day." Lee had been meaning to surprise his friends with the news later that day, hence why they were on their way to meet Guy. Lee wanted to tell his team all together, but it would seem that he would have to tell Guy second. Although he was worried as Tsunade said that the treatment was looking dangerous, but if he couldn't be a ninja then there wasn't anything else that Lee would want in life. He still had a dream to pursue, and if he died in the pursuit of that dream, then so be it. Naruto was all smiles at that. "All right. I knew that Ba-chan wouldn't let us down. Just you wait, Lee, she'll make you better than ever." Tenten smiled and even Neji had a small smile on his face at that. It would be good to have Lee back. Gaara himself wasn't sure how he felt, but he felt better. Unlike the boy that he had once hurt, Lee was forgiving him for what he had done. It made the bad feelings inside of him lessen and slowly replaced by something else. "I would like that," Gaara told Lee. "Then when I am ready we will have the most youthful match." Lee shouted out. Gaara wasn't sure by what he meant by youthful, but he nodded anyway. Making her smile. For the past week things had been going okay with her life. Temari was getting used to the village, although it was still not her home. After her brothers and Baki had left she had felt very alone even with sharing a home. But at least Naruto turned out to be decent company. She had been also started with the wind training with Naruto, although he was starting to have some trouble with it. She did her best to explain it, but it seemed that Naruto worked best with simple instructions and then he could get along fine enough. In Suna, when someone had wind elemental abilities you had to cut a rock with it. It wasn't easy as a rock was very tough, but once you did that anything else was child's play. Basically you had to hold a rock in your hand and focus on the wind chakra and force it to cut the rock up. Temari had managed to do it after nearly 6 months of training. She constantly made small cuts into her first rock over and over until it broke. Then she had to try and do it with less cuts each time until she could cut a rock with only one try. She had found out that typically in this village you would use a leaf, but it wasn't like there was much plant life in her home. You had to use what you could, and with Naruto's huge chakra she felt that a rock would be better to get him to do it properly. He was more of a blunt fighter anyway, and with wind jutsus at his disposal he could be very devastating in battle. After all, wind wasn't called the battle element for nothing. Besides that, it was just slightly odd living in the Leaf Village. She got some cold looks, but she was prepared for it. Although she would admit that it was kind of lonely, but she was used to that as well. After all, most of her life her father had been cold and distant, her younger brother obsessed over his puppets, her youngest brother had until recently been completely insane. Baki had been more teacher than friend, and because of her Gaara and her status she didn't have many friends. But at least she was in her own village. Here she didn't have the same sense of belonging that she had on her village. So she was currently lying on a small ledge looking outside the window of her room. Looking outside, she could smell the scent of the trees and flowers. She was surprised that Naruto actually gardened at least a little and had a hard time telling what was a weed and what was a plant, but she still missed the smell of desert lilies as well. While she was at the window, Naruto was up in his room getting all the supplies he needed for the day. His team had the day off, and Tsunade suggested to him that on days off he might as well get to know Temari more. Well, given what he heard of her childhood being just as lonely as his, only less fun it seemed. Well, he was going to fix that up. He put his supplies into a sealing scroll, and he wished he had known this before. Knowing how to seal things up would have made his life so much easier, and he was wondering why that was never taught in school. Maybe he'd ask Iruka next time he saw him. At any rate, this would be a nice way of thanking Temari for showing him how to do it. He went in search of Temari as he had something planned out for the entire day. He found her in her room looking out the window. He paused for a moment as he just watched her. He guessed she was thinking about her home he would be if he was in her position. "Hey, Temari," he asked. Temari looked over to him. "What's up? You okay?" Naruto asked, seeing the look of longing in her eyes. "I'm fine," she said, getting up and away from the window. Naruto was silent a moment as he looked at her. She was putting up a false face, which was something he had a lot of experience in. He knew the signs of someone that was hiding any kind of pain, as he used that same mask himself a lot of the time. "I know you miss your home and I'm sorry you had to leave it," Naruto told her bluntly. Temari hadn't thought she looked that transparent, but she just shrugged it off. "Not your fault. Sometimes you just have to take what life gives you. Nothing can change it, so I'm not going to let it dominate my life." "You know, you never said, but what are the things you miss the most?" Naruto was genuinely curious. "I mean, I know what I would miss if I had to leave, but I've never been to Suna." Temari shrugged. "Well, there is a few things. There was this nice coffee shop that served this great stuff there. I miss the sunsets that I could see on the mountain ranges. In the right season the sands can look like they're on fire for a moment. The way the west wind would bring the scent of desert lilies was also nice." Temari lost herself in her memories of her home. Sure, it was a bit desolate compared to other villages, but it was still her home. Naruto could see the downcast look on her face, and he figured that she really did need what he had planned out, plus he filed away those little pieces of information away for later as well. He went over and grabbed her hand, surprising the taller blonde. "What the hell?" Temari asked, being dragged through the home. "Come on, you're coming with me," Naruto simply said as she nearly dragged her out of the room. She barely managed to grab her fan before leaving as well. It wasn't that she was expecting trouble, it was just that she always went everywhere with it. It was when he finally stopped on the top of a building that she finally managed to get him to stop and explain. She wanted to know why they had the day off. He came and dragged her halfway across the village to some building looking around for someone. Naruto grinned at her. "Well, you said that you never got to have any fun in your life." "I said I never had a normal childhood, and for the record I did have fun at times," she said, putting her hands on her hips. "Yeah, but I doubt it was much, so I'm going to show you just how much fun you missed out on. One of the things I'm going to show you is how to pull pranks on people as well," Naruto told her, taking out a scroll. "This is stupid," Temari said, turning around to leave. What you scared or just think that you can't pull one off? Naruto challenged her. He saw her pause in mid-step and he knew that she was a very proud girl and like a lot of proud people couldn't pass up a challenge to their pride, now he just needed to push her once more. Plus I guess the fact that the first target is Shikamaru means nothing, huh? Temari turned around to see Naruto pointing in the distance. She took a long look and managed to spot the boy laying on some bench on the top of a building looking like he was sleeping of all things. An eyebrow started to tick on her head at that. She never did forgive him for that humiliation in the Chunin exams. Their battle had been long but in the end he had outmaneuvered her the entire time, he had her in that shadow technique of his and what did he do? He gave up. Sure she technically won but she didn't feel like it was a win, the fact that he didn't like to fight girls, and how work was too troublesome, was also very irritation to her. The boy was just so lazy and a bit sexist in her opinion, plus the fact that he was the only one promoted to Chunin and he still shirked off the responsibility. If she had been made a Chunin she would have honored the position and not sat around sleeping the day away. What do you have planned? She asked Naruto who just grinned a bit evilly. He pulled out a ceiling scroll and suddenly in a cloud of smoke lots of hot air balloons tied down and other balloons that looked like they were filled with water. There were more of the hot air ones than the water ones and she was wondering what he was thinking of. Can you make sure that these balloons float over him with your fan? Naruto asked and then Temari suddenly got where this was going. She had a grin on her face as she quickly helped him to tie the hot air balloons to the water balloons. Over with Shikamaru he was enjoying a restful day, sure he was supposed to show up for a mission assignment at the Hokage's office but she never did say when he had to show up. So he was taking his time enjoying the clouds as he liked to. He loved clouds, they were just so carefree and slowly did whatever they felt like doing, which was just floating along really. He closed his eyes listening to the wind gently blowing, then the wind picked up a bit he didn't think much of it until a shadow fell across his face, he just thought a cloud got in front of the sun. Now! Yelled out a familiar voice. He opened his eyes just in time to see several shuriken hit several balloons popping them, but then he noticed that several balloons were now falling which made no sense unless they were filled with. Splash! Shikamaru got up after the water balloons hit him and looked over seeing Naruto laughing his ass off with Temari who looked like she was enjoying herself. What the hell Naruto? Shikamaru yelled over to him. Sorry. Nothing personal just trying to show Temari the joys of pranking people. Well got to go we got a lot more targets to hit, Naruto called out as he and Temari ran off. Shikamaru sighed as he wiped the water off his face. He hated it when he got pulled into one of Naruto's pranks, sure they were fun when they happened to other people but not to him, although he will admit that was a unique one. But still why did he have to ruin his cloud watching? He managed to get out of some work for Tsunade for the day and then that happened and worse he seemed to have recruited Temari of all people to help. Those two blondes together seemed to be just so troublesome. Shikamaru, where the hell are you? Ino's voice yelled out from nearby. Lady Tsunade asked me to come looking for you for work. Damn it, the young Chunin sighed. Figures that she would send Ino after me. Shikamaru get out here now. I'm using my break time from the flower shop so you better get your lazy ass out here now or when I find you I'll use my mind transfer jutsu and make you walk to the Hokage's office myself. The thing was, he knew that she wasn't bluffing. He sighed as he got up off his spot as now his whole day was ruined. First Tsunade, then Naruto and Temari and now Ino, he muttered as he went to find Ino. Why is it that besides my mom, the most troublesome people I know are blondes? There you are. Where the hell were you? And why are you all wet? Ino asked him when he saw her. He just muttered something about troublesome blondes and went to the Hokage's tower. Elsewhere, Hinata was walking the streets of her village. She wasn't really caring much where she was going. Her team had finished off with a mission and she had said her farewells. She just wanted to be alone for the moment. Ever since Naruto's announcement of his marriage she had been very depressed. She still broke down crying at times late at night in her room a few days, it just wasn't fair. She should have said something to him all those years ago but she wasted all that time because she had been so shy, she was still shy and she hated being like that. What if she had found the courage to admit her feelings? If she and Naruto had been a couple then would have the Hokage refused it? Then there was the fact that her family would most likely not approve of Naruto, at least not before the Chunin exams when he defeated Neji. She had seen how the village had changed a bit. Some people actually looked at Naruto without the cold looks, although she still saw many that held whatever resentment they had. She never did figure out why so many people seemed to dislike Naruto so much. One of the reasons that she came up with was that maybe his family had fallen into some dishonor in the face of the village. It would explain much, but she never heard of any Uzumaki family unless Naruto was the last. She found herself at the park for some reason. She stood there watching everyone having a fun time. She saw families there, children at play, and she felt a wave of sorrow over her. Her family wasn't really that warm, they had to be the picture of perfection and nobility. Her own father trained her and her sister very hard because Hinata knew that the main branch had to be the strongest, and she knew that she was a disappointment to the standards of her family. Although her father was cold, he wasn't totally abusive to her. It wasn't like he hurt her physically, but she did feel the pain of his disappointment in her. He always would say that she needed to be stronger, and she knew that he didn't know that she had overheard what he had said to Kurenai on that day. She wanted to make her father proud of her to be stronger, but she knew that she still had a ways to go. Looking at the children at play reminded her of her own lonely childhood. She never had any friends really while growing up. Maybe that was one of the reasons she noticed Naruto at an early age. He was lonely just like she had been. He wanted to be noticed as well, so he acted out and he trained himself so hard all the time. Hinata remembered the times she would secretly watch as he kept pushing himself long after others went home for the day. Hey, Hinata. She jumped as she was broken out of her thoughts as she turned around to see Kiba there with Akamaru. Kiba-kun, we've all been a bit worried about you lately, Kiba told her, so I decided to see if you needed someone to talk to. Thanks, Hinata said, giving a small smile as she looked back to the playground. Many of the children were leaving with family, it seemed, for the moment. Kiba stood beside her as she was looking over the playground, wondering what she was looking at. He knew that she was really depressed over the whole marriage thing with Naruto. He never knew just how much she must have liked him until this whole thing turned up. He hated seeing her like this. Actually, she was just the most kindness person that he ever met. She didn't deserve to be miserable like this. So, what are you thinking about? He asked. Just thinking about when I was younger. Kiba thought about it for a moment. You know, I can't remember seeing you all that much outside of the academy. Hinata jumped a bit as she looked down at her feet. He noticed the look and was worried. I just figured you had your own friends to play with, Kiba told her. Hinata's mood got a bit darker. I didn't really make friends until I was put on Team 10. Kiba was surprised by that. He figured that she would have had some friends, or at least some in her own clan. But the look on her face told him otherwise. He couldn't remember seeing her playing with others when he was younger, not that he looked for her. She was so quiet and she just blended into the background so much that you could easily overlook her. Now that they were put onto the same team, he had taken notice of her. She had become his friend like Shino had, and now he wished that he had been her friend when they were younger. Well, if he couldn't change the past, he would at least give her something better for the present. Come on with me, Kiba said as he grabbed her hand and led her into the playground. Kiba-kun, she asked. Let's just say I want to make up for you missing out on a few things. Kiba said as they got to a set of swings. He asked her to sit down and she nervously did, although she did with a small smile. She knew that she might be a bit old for this, but she never really got the chance to do something like this. In fact, she had been too scared as a little girl to try it out. Kiba helped her when he figured out that she never been on a swing before, so he got behind her and started pushing. Hinata had to admit it was fun. She had never had a friend to push her on one of these things, and the feeling she got when she got up made her feel funny in her stomach area, but in a good way. She saw Akamaru running below her, barking as he would try and jump up to tap her feet as she tried to move her feet like targets for the pup. She actually laughed a bit, and Kiba had heard her giggle but never really laughed before. It was a nice sound actually, and for some reason made him smile. Mommy, aren't they a bit big for swings? A little boy asked his mother as they passed by them. The mother just smiled at her son. Don't point, Kenji, just leave the young couple on their date. At the word, date, both young teens froze up, and it didn't help that they froze with his hands resting on her hips. Both of them noticed this and blushed as Hinata jumped off the swings and Kiba put his hands behind him quickly. Both avoided looking at the other for a moment. Kiba just meant to cheer her up, not make it look like he was dating her. So, Kiba wasn't sure what to say at the moment, and Akamaru gave a small whine and turned away. The little guy wasn't going to help him out with this one, it would seem. Thank you, Kiba-kun, Hinata said quickly to avoid anything more embarrassing happened between them. She knew that he was just trying to cheer her up after all. Kiba blinked and then smiled at her. Sure, no problem, just remember, if you're ever sad or lonely, me and Akamaru would be glad to help out. Akamaru barked to let her know that he agreed with his master. Hinata smiled, feeling a bit better now as she nodded her head. Elsewhere, so far the blonde duo of Temari and Naruto had hit several targets throughout the day. Naruto felt good doing some pranks again. He hadn't the time since he made Genin after all, and he was well overdue. After they hit Shikamaru, they went on to the rest of the town as well. Anko had been about to enjoy her dango when she took her first bite. Her mouth nearly caught on fire. She went to drink all the water she could. Apparently the server had been Naruto in a henge while Temari had put the hot sauce on the dango. Naruto had been meaning to getting back at Anko for cutting his cheek and freaking him out during the Chunin exams. They later hit Kakashi, posing as a kid and their cat stuck in a tree. The Jonin had left with several scratches on his mask because of it. A couple of the more stuck-up Hyugas from the main branch ended up with paints of all different colors all over them. A person who had made a anti-Suna remark against Temari ended up hanging upside down with their pants around their ankles. A few other things as well. Before they took a break, they were resting on a bench and Temari had to admit she had a lot of fun, despite herself. See, told ya it was fun, Naruto said, grinning at her. Okay, so you were right, Temari told him, still smiling. It felt good in a way to cut loose. She never got the chance to do anything like that, plus Naruto was very good at it. How often did you do this? Oh, I used to prank people all the time, Naruto said proudly. A few times I never even got caught, but my best prank was the one I pulled before I graduated. Do I want to know? She asked in good humor. See that mountain range with the faces of all the Hokages? Naruto asked her. I painted it all up after an hour. I had to get up early for that one, but it was worth it. You didn't, Temari said, both shocked and impressed that he was able to do that without anyone seeing him until it was done. I had Jonins, Chunins and Anbu chasing me for over an hour. Naruto laughed, and despite herself, Temari gave a small laugh at that as well. She was starting to see that surprising people was a trait that Naruto had. She never would have done anything like that back home. Her father would have been so angry with her as she had painted up the side of the rock wall that shielded their village. Well, if it isn't the dead last and the Suna girl, a slightly annoying female voice said, and instantly Naruto's mood dropped. He looked and was surprised to see two girls. Both of them had been in his class. One was Amy and he thought the other was named Haruka. Both of them were die-hard members of the Sasuke fan club. In fact, Amy was kind of a bully in class and picked on others. Man, I'm not surprised that you get the job of marrying this girl, Haruka said, grinning. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Naruto asked her angrily. He never liked these two. That of course the dead last would get chosen for such a horrible fate. I mean, to marry this girl is laughable. She's just a peace offering so our village doesn't crush hers, although they certainly deserve it for betraying us like they did, Amy said in a dark tone. First off, little girl, Temari said, standing up to her full height, which was at least a foot taller than the other girl. My father was murdered and replaced by Orochimaru and tricked us into his plans, and as for Naruto, I don't know why you don't thank him, as he's the one that saved your village from my brother Gaara. Oh please, like he could have done anything, Haruka said, waving it away. I bet he only got in Sasuke-kun's way when he fought the Uchiha. Temari actually laughed at that. He couldn't land a blow on my brother, and Naruto was the one that beat Gaara. I should know, as I was there watching it all, and let me tell you both something, he's a lot stronger than the Uchiha boy. I don't think so, Amy yelled out at her. No one is better than Sasuke-kun. Yeah, Haruka said. Come on Temari, let's get out of here, Naruto said as he gently grabbed her wrist and led her away. Temari was fuming. It was bad enough a couple of arrogant bitches were bad-mouthing her village, but how could Naruto stand that kind of verbal abuse like that? He was clearly stronger in her view, but why did those girls not know that? Maybe it was because they were blinded by their views of Sasuke Uchiha. She had seen this all too often in her own village. Girls like that made her sick as they weren't Roth being ninja in her opinions, and to top it all off they hadn't even been in the Chunin exams, and Naruto had gotten into the finals on his first try. So there was no way they could look down at him as he had accomplished more than they most likely had. She was about to demand why he didn't let her just trash those girls when she noticed the evil smirk on his face. What are you planning? Temari narrowed her eyes. Naruto's grin only grew. Why fight them when we can just get even? Later that day Amy was walking through the village. She was still smirking about putting that Suna girl in her place. She would never forgive the Suna for what they had done. For one thing, her home had been one of the buildings damaged and her family had to start over again. It wasn't fun and she had a lot of good memories of her home. She was about to see how her mother was doing when she froze in horror. There, not 12 feet away, was Haruka and Sasuke of all people, and they were hugging each other. "Oh Sasuke-kun, I'm so glad that you agreed to go out with me," Haruka smiled at the boy. "I couldn't stand it anymore. You're the most beautiful girl in the village." Sasuke said. "Better than Amy." "Oh please, that hag couldn't compare to you, Haruka-chan," Sasuke said as she sighed. "She is pretty ugly, huh?" Haruka said as both laughed. They didn't see Amy as she had ducked around the corner of a building to hear them, but she was gritting her teeth now. She couldn't believe that Haruka would say that about her, let alone steal her. "Sasuke-kun. Meet me at the park in an hour, okay?" Sasuke asked. "Sure thing," Haruka said happily. That was enough for Amy as she stormed off. If Haruka was thinking she was getting away with this, then she had another thing coming. When she was out of sight, both Sasuke and Haruka smiled as in a puff of smoke there stood both Naruto and Temari. "Okay, we got one now, we just need to get the other one," Naruto grinned as Temari matched it. An hour later, both Temari and Naruto were waiting in the trees for their targets. They had pretty much pulled the same stunt with Haruka, so now they just had to wait for them to meet up and for the fireworks to start off. Temari had to admit this way of revenge was more work, but it was a lot more fun, plus they couldn't get into trouble for it. While doing this, she figured that her beating the hell out of a couple of genin, even if they had it coming, would look bad, so this way both girls got what was coming to them and she and Naruto were just looking on, being innocent of the whole affair. "Hey, I think I see target one," Naruto smiled. "And there is the other one," Temari said, pointing as the other was walking in the opposite way towards them. When both girls saw each other, it took only for a second before both of them grew furious seeing the other girl. "You bitch!" Both girls yelled out as they started the verbal fighting. This caused many onlookers. Both were saying how the other was a two-timer, a bad stabber, and every other name they could think of. When one of them called the other a whore, well, that was it. The fight became physical at that point as the girls went to the ground clawing at each other. This caused a few boys their age to stop. Many started whistling and catcalling as the cat fight started up, but a few chunins were in the area and pulled the girls apart eventually, although they were still kicking and screaming at the other while being held back. "Well, I was hoping they would be able to fight some more, but overall I think it was good," Naruto said, smiling. Temari smiled and shook her head. "Remind me never to get you pissed off to prank me. In fact, you ever do and I find out about it, you better run." Naruto smiled nervously and scratched the back of his head. "Oh come on, I would never do that to you. What kind of guy do you think I am?" Temari gave him a deadpan expression as she pointed at the two girls, and Naruto had to admit she made a good point. "Okay, I promise that I'll never prank you, at least nothing horrible like that," Naruto said as he wanted to make sure he could keep that promise. "You better keep that promise," she said. "Hey, I always keep my promise. It's part of my ninja code," Naruto said proudly. Temari gave a small smile. "All right then, well, let's eat." "All right, race you to the ramen stand." Naruto jumped out of the tree heading for his usual eating place. "Huh? Naruto, get back here!" Temari yelled out as she had to run after the boy. She had never agreed to ramen, and if he got to that stand first, she couldn't talk him out of it. They had eaten there last night and she was trying to get him to eat different foods, and for some strange reason she felt that he planned this part out as well. She grinned as she chased after him. "Looks like you'll keep me on my toes, Naruto." She was looking forward to the challenge that he looked like he was going to give her in life. She thought Shikamaru was smart, but Naruto took surprising to a whole new level. Mr. Nice Guy. Naruto was standing in the Hokage's office, not even sure why he was called here. It had been after training when the message got to their team that he was to be called into the Hokage's office as soon as possible. He was kind of disappointed that he had to, since Temari had loosened up a bit since the pranking they had done, and he had been wondering if he could have found something else fun for them to do. She seemed a bit more settled into things as well, although she was still a bit serious, but he hoped that he could help with that. But now he was standing in front of Tsunade's desk as she was going through a pile of papers that Shizune had put there. I can't believe how much paperwork this job has, Tsunade muttered to herself. If she had known how much work this job had, she might not have taken it. Someone arrested for public nudity, graffiti, and above all 2 young kunoichi brawling in the streets, Tsunade told Shizune as she was looking over the incident reports of yesterday. I tell you, I don't remember things like that happening when I was in the village, at least not this much happening. Naruto suddenly froze as he started nervously sweating. Those sounded like the pranks he and Temari had pulled. He swallowed hard as he quickly out of habit scanned for all the possible exits. He knew that he'd have to make a quick getaway if he needed it. Tsunade gave a look at Naruto. Why are you so tense? Aren't things going well with Temari? Naruto suddenly realized that since she was so new at her job and to being back in the village, his reputation for his pranks wasn't known to her, at least yet. He figured as long as he didn't say anything he was in the clear, and then hoped that when she found out about his pranks she never thought back to this day. Oh yeah, things are going okay. We're training really hard and she's showing me how to use wind nature, although it's kind of hard. I have to split a rock with my wind chakra and so far I can just put scratches on it. Well, nature elemental training was always pretty hard normally, Tsunade told him. Then how come Sasuke Tem managed to use 2 different types? Naruto sulked a bit. Well. Tsunade looked to Shizune for help, but she quickly made it look like she was busy with looking over the paperwork in her arms. Traitor, Tsunade thought darkly to herself before looking at a waiting Naruto. Well, kids like Sasuke are rare, and besides his clan was always good with fire elemental jutsus, so since he already knows how to use an element, it's easier once you find out what your secondary element affinity is. Oh, I guess that makes sense, Naruto thought to himself. Tsunade was glad the explanation worked on him. She wasn't sure using the term genius or prodigy would work with someone like Naruto. But now it was time to get to why she called him into her office. So Naruto, do you like Temari? The Hokage asked. Naruto scratched the back of his head. I guess so. I mean, she's teaching me some cool stuff. It's nice not living alone anymore, and thanks for the new home, by the way. She's kind of strict at times, but I think I know how to loosen her up some. Tsunade sighed. That's not what I meant. And do you find her attractive? What? Naruto said, blushing a bit. Naruto, have you even tried to go on a date with her yet? The older blonde asked the younger. Why would I? I mean, we're getting married, so what's the point? Naruto asked honestly. Tsunade felt like slamming her head into the desk at that point. How he could be so short-sighted was beyond her. She had been hoping that he would make an effort to at least court the girl so that something could develop, but Naruto had no plans at all for it. Naruto, just answer the question, do you think she's attractive? Well, I guess so, Naruto admitted. Look, Naruto, you really don't want to be put into a loveless marriage, do you? Maybe at least make an effort to take her out for a date or something. You never know, something might happen, and it would be better if you could love each other eventually as well. Tsunade said gently to him. I know this is hard, but it will make this easier in the long run at least, plus it will make you both happier as well. Naruto looked down, thinking about it. He never really did think about his life over the years. He might be able to live with just a marriage without love, but in all honesty it wasn't something to look forward to either. Naruto had to make a lot of changes in his life, some easier than others. He had done his best to give up on his quest to win Sakura over to him, although a part of him still cared for her and he doubted he would totally get over it. But was it really fair to live an entire life without trying to find some kind of love? Plus, what about Temari? Did she deserve the same fate? He thought about his future wife. He would admit that physically she was pretty good. Her long legs were nice and he remembered how she looked coming out of the show with her hair all wet like that. He gulped at the memory. Okay, sure, he found her physically attractive and they were getting along. She had the same work ethic as him too, which was nice. Well, I guess I could try, Naruto wondered out loud. Tsunade smiled. So what kind of plans do you have for her? Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I never had a date. Do either of you have any ideas? Tsunade thought about it. It was better to get advice from them than someone like Jiraiya if he found out that he was looking for advice. Well, treat her nice. I mean, take her out to dinner, or just for a walk. I remember a date with Dan. He showed up with my favorite flowers and we walked to his favorite spot. It was this little bridge overlooking a lake just as the sun was setting. She sighed, remembering those days. It was a beautiful moment and he would tell me how lucky he felt that he found me and said how he admired my abilities, my strength and my beauty. Tsunade sighed as a bit of a sadness hit her. She missed him so much at times. He was the only man that she allowed herself to fall in love with, but the pain of his death was just too much for her. She had stood over him, covered in his blood, trying to save his life, but she couldn't. She couldn't save her little brother who died on his first mission away from the village, and she couldn't save him even when she was there. Shizune looked on in sympathy for Tsunade and the fact that Dan had been her uncle too. Her parents had died when she was young and Dan had taken her in, and when he had died, Tsunade had taken her in after that. After that they had spent the years looking after each other and was the closest thing to family she had in the world. She looked over at Naruto, who was like a lovable kid brother to her lately. Naruto-kun, just remember that girls like to be treated well, complimented, and try to be romantic if you can. Holding hands is a nice way to start, and don't forget to be a gentleman either, like holding a door open for her, pulling out a seat for her, or paying for the meal. Shizune added. And when was the last time you went out on a date? Tsunade asked with a sly smile. Shizune flinched at that. It's not my fault. I just like a certain type. Shizune, if you keep those high standards you'll never find a man, the Hokage joked as Shizune hung her head in slight depression. She hadn't even been with a man in 2 years and she hadn't found the time to date in a long time. Naruto noticed the downward look on a woman that was like an older sister to him and he didn't like it. Well, she might have had the time if you didn't drag her all over the place and running from all the people you owe money to, or dragging you home after you got drunk, Ba-chan. Naruto told the other blonde who had the good graces to blush at the mention of her less than honorable moments in her life. Shizune gave a small smile to the boy for sticking up for her, and he did have a point too. With all the running around she had barely the time to date. Hell, she had left the village as a teenager and she still remembered that horrible night she decided to lose her virginity to a boy she met on the road in this village they had stopped at one night. That hadn't been a good time for her and she was glad when they left it far behind. Thankfully the very few men she found later on were much better, but she had never found Mr. Right while on the road. Maybe it was something that she could finally get around to doing now that she was now living in one spot all the time. Tsunade coughed, trying to get her dignity back. Well, anyway, try and at least make an effort with making a relationship. Above all, I just want you to be happy the best way I can. Naruto gave her one of his smaller but sincere smiles at that last part. It was good to know that there were people now that actually cared about him. Plus, maybe he should at least try things out with Temari. After all, they would be living their entire lives with each other. Later, Naruto went walking around the village trying to figure out things that Temari would like. So far he knew a few things about her and he was trying to figure out something nice that he could get her. Something that reminded her of her home would be perfect, but looking around there wasn't much he could find. Plus he didn't know all that much of Suna to being with other than what she had said, and it was in a desert. It was on his wondering that he noticed a flower shop and he suddenly was hit by an idea. He grinned widely as he ran to the store, hoping they would be able to help him. Inside the shop there was Ino Yamanaka. Her mother had asked for help with the store today, and since her team wasn't doing anything, she was the one currently working the counter. She didn't mind it. She loved flowers and knew all kinds of information about them, plus she had been helping with the family business for years anyway. Today hadn't been too bad. It had a few slow periods, but overall there had been enough people coming in so she wasn't bored. She hated the slow days as it just seemed to drag on and she would rather train than just sit there doing nothing. Plus, after her match with Sakura in the Chunin exams, she had taken to thinking that she needed to train more. She had always been the stronger ninja, but Sakura had beaten her to a tie, and it was a wake-up call in a way. Although the other good thing that came out of it was that their old friendship had started to be repaired. The door opened up with the familiar door chimes. "Welcome to the Yamanaka flower shop, how can I help you?" she asked just on instinct before looking at the door. "Ino." The blonde looked over and was surprised to see Naruto of all people. "What are you doing here?" Naruto asked. "What do you mean? This is my family's shop, didn't you know that?" Ino asked. Naruto actually didn't know that, as he didn't really read the sign, he just saw the flowers and figured to go in. Plus, he never knew that Ino's family owned a shop at any rate. Ino rolled her eyes and sighed. "Well, what can I do for you anyway?" "Oh right." Naruto remembered why he came in here for. "Do you have any desert lilies?" Ino blinked, surprised by that. "I'll have to check, that's kind of a rare flower for here, as it's not really native to our climate. But give me a moment and I'll see if I can find it." Naruto smiled broadly, hoping that Ino had the flower. While she went into the back, Naruto looked around. There were so many different types of flowers, in fact he hadn't known that there were so many flowers in the world as he looked around. When Ino came back, she was carrying a potted plant. "Well, you're in luck, this is the only one we had," Ino said as she put it on the counter. "Why did you want such a rare plant anyway?" "Well, it's for Temari," he told her, getting his frog wallet. "Oh," Ino said, getting interested in this now, "so giving flowers to a girl is a major thing. You like her or something?" Well, it's just that, well, I was told by Tsunade Bachan that maybe I should try dating Temari before the wedding. These are actually her favorite flowers, so I figured it would be a good start. I'm surprised at you, I never figured you for someone that would be so romantic, so where are you taking her? And please tell me you are not wearing that." She pointed at his clothing. Naruto frowned and looked at his favorite jumpsuit. "What's wrong with this?" "Where do I start?" Ino said dryly. "Look, you want some advice for dating from a girl's point of view." Naruto thought about it. He didn't really know what he was doing, but any helpful advice was good. Shizune and Tsunade had helped him out, but he really wanted to get all the help he could get, as he wanted this to go really well. Plus, it wasn't like he knew many girls that could help him out as well. "Okay, so what do I need to know?" Naruto asked her eagerly. Ino smirked. As for the next few hours, Naruto got more than he bargained for. Temari's room. Temari sighed as she placed her battle fan against the wall and sat down. She had done some extra training with her fan to kill the afternoon, and now she felt a bit tired. She looked in her mirror and her eyes went to the picture of her and her brothers. She had taken it before she left the village. In it she was giving a small smile. Kankuro was smirking, and Gaara, well, he looked as neutral as ever, but you could tell he was more relaxed in the picture. Placed near it was her old forehead protector. Sometimes she would trace the outline of the symbol put on it as a reminder of where she came from. Not that she really needed it, but it helped to ease the small pain of being away from home. She sighed and closed her eyes, and for a moment she thought she could smell the scent of desert lilies. Wait a minute, she thought as her eyes opened up. The smell was way too strong for a memory, and she looked around, and there by the window was a potted plant with, of all things, her favorite flowers. She sat there shocked and dumbfounded for a moment before going to it. She saw there was a card along with it and took it as she read it. "Hey Temari, I hope you like the flowers, I know you like them. If you're not doing anything, you want to go out tonight? I want to take you someplace special to me. I'm getting some things ready just in case, so I'll be back before 4. She smiled as it was sighed Naruto at the end. She had to admit this was one of the nicest things someone had done. She sniffed the flowers, enjoying their scent. It was a very thoughtful gift, and she had to admit that she liked it. She looked back at the note and then read the last part over again as something hit her. Is he asking me out? Temari thought, looking at the wording. It sounded like it, although she supposed it could have been taken the wrong way, but why would he ask her out when they were already going to be married? Unless maybe the boy actually liked her and wanted to ask her out. That made Temari's cheeks blush a bit, mainly due to the fact that no one had even had the courage to ask her out before. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, Temari thought to herself, but just in case she went to shower and change her clothing. She decided to pick something that was nice and yet not too nice. she wanted to look good because they were going out but not too much in case it wasn't a date. By the time she was finished, she was in a black version of her dress that she wore when she first came to this village. There were a few differences, but it still held a skirt, and she wore a different pair of the leg stockings, a matching set on her legs that covered her legs. She decided just a slight shade of lipstick would be good enough and nothing else. She checked the clock and found that she was going to run late, and she was anything but someone that was late. Temari debated taking her fan, but she doubted she would need it this time and went downstairs. Naruto had been waiting, hoping that Temari would agree to this. Then he heard someone coming down the stairs and looked up. As she came down the stairs, he had to admit that she really was pretty, and black somehow looked good on her. He was glad that he took some of the advice that Ino told him and changed himself, seeing how Temari looked a bit better than normal. He had gotten rid of his favorite orange jumpsuit and went with some of the few clothing he did have that wasn't that. He found an old pair of jean shorts and he wore his black t-shirt with the orange swirl marking on it. He also put away his headband for it as well. Temari gave a small smile seeing Naruto out of his orange suit. He looked different when not wearing that suit of his, plus his hair looked a bit more wild without the headband there. She made a mental note to try and get him some more clothing one of these days. Thanks for the flowers, Temari told him. He gave a huge grin as he scratched the back of his head. Glad you were happy with them. I know how you missed your home and stuff and remembered how you talked about those flowers. Well, you didn't have to go to all the trouble, but thanks anyway. So what is this thing you had in mind for us? Well, Naruto didn't think this would be so hard. After all, they were going to be married, right? But he could feel his face heating up a bit. I just thought that we should try and, well, date. Temari raised an eyebrow at that. She really hadn't thought about it. Although it wasn't like she had any experience with dating, given her family, no one had been brave enough to go and ask her out, so she ended up just giving up on dating and focused on her ninja training. Then the next thing she knew, she was getting married and figured she would never have to go through it all. But now Naruto was asking her out on a date. She felt a bit touched that he would ask that and was glad she dressed up a bit. She might as well try it, as she figured this might be the only date she ever got in life. Alright, so what do you have in mind? She asked, surprising Naruto. Well, come on, I wanted to show you a special spot of mine, he told her as he grabbed a few items that he had fixed up for it. They eventually ended up on the Hokage monument on the top of the fort's head. Temari had to admit that the last thing she thought he would take her was up here, and also that he would be making a picnic of all things. She watched as Naruto set things up. Temari was also wondering if they were even allowed to do this and kept looking to see if any Anbu would be coming any minute to take them away. Hey, it's all ready, Naruto called to her. Well, if we're going to jail for this, then we might as well get something to eat, Temari thought as she sat down next to him. Overall, it was a nice setup and the view was nice up here. She looked at the food and it looked pretty good. In fact, it looked better than what Naruto normally cooked. She was wondering how he was able to cook so well until she noticed something in the basket. So you cooked this yourself? She asked him. Oh yeah, I sure did. Pretty good, huh? Naruto asked her, smiling proudly. Oh yeah, if I didn't know any better I would have sworn this was store-bought stuff, Temari told him, giving him a sly smile. Naruto stiffened a bit and gave a nervous laugh. What? No way, why would you say that? Then Temari got a small smile and pulled out a cup that had a store brand name on it. Naruto gulped nervously as he mentally cursed himself for getting careless. He had thought he had managed to get rid of all of the things that would have shown where he bought the food. Don't worry about it, Temari told him, putting it away. It's the thought that counts anyway. Naruto chuckled nervously. Sorry, I just wanted to make his nice. This is actually my first date with a girl. Well, it's my first time too, so don't sweat it, she said. Naruto looked at her for a moment. How come? I mean, you're smart, strong and, well, pretty. So how come you haven't been on any dates before? She actually blushed a bit when he said she was pretty. No boy had actually done that before that she could think of. She looked down at her food to avoid him seeing it, as she thought if she should tell him. In the end, she decided she might as well and told her of how the boys were too intimidated by her to ask her to date. Naruto actually looked sad for that. He never figured that someone with a family could still be lonely, and he could tell. From the way she talked about her childhood, he could just tell. After all, he had a lonely childhood himself, and maybe that was why he could see that part of her as she was talking. Naruto then brightened up. Well, then I guess I'll just have to make it up to you by giving you the best dates I can do. Then he looked a little uncertain, that is, if you still want to. Well, so far it's been nice, Temari said, not sure what she felt about it. Let's just play it by ear then. So this is your special spot, huh? Yeah. Naruto's face took on a more serious look as he looked over the village. I sometimes come up here when I need to get away or to think. Plus, looking over the village reminds me of my dream. To be Hokage. Temari stated. Naruto nodded his head. I originally wanted to be Hokage for people to recognize me and respect me, but I learned that to be Hokage means more than that. It means that you put your life on the line to protect everyone in the village, and I know I'm not the smartest or the most well-liked, but this is still my home and I'll do everything to protect this village and my precious people. As he was talking, the sun was setting down over the city, casting a light over the area, and from her viewpoint Naruto almost looked like he was bathed in light for a moment. The way the light hit him as he looked over the village for some reason captivated her as she listened to him. I promised myself that I would become greater than any of the other Hokages, to protect my precious people and to ensure that everyone in the village is protected, and I always keep my promises. It's my nindo, my way of the ninja. He really means it, Temari thought as she just stared at the genin in front of her. The look of intensity in his eyes were like a fire, no more like a maelstrom. That was the perfect thing for this boy. He was full of energy and power, he was unrelenting and never let anything get in his way. She remembered his fights against Gaara and how he had learned the Rasengan as well. There was so much potential in the boy, and for some reasons she felt drawn to it. It was like a burning sun, full of light and power and above all warmth. She felt her cheeks heat up slightly, but then the light started to die down and the magic of the moment went with it. She controlled herself before he noticed, and as they continued on she had to admit that he had got her interest. He was certainly not like other boys, and maybe being married to him might not be so bad after all. It was still too soon to tell, but for the first time she had hoped that this wouldn't be so bad an arrangement. Naruto was glad that the first date had gone well. She had seemed to enjoy herself and it had been nice. He was happy that his first real date had gone so well. He had kept expecting something to go wrong, but besides the fact she found out his little secret with the food, it hadn't been so bad. They had finished up and cleaned things up on his insistence, odd for a boy that once painted up the heads, but he had a newfound respect for the Hokages since the third had died and he wanted to keep it clean. It was late by the time they got back and he was glad to see her actually smiling a bit, so he guessed that she had enjoyed herself. He was about to put the basket away when he had to say goodnight to Temari first. So I hope you enjoyed tonight, Naruto said a little nervously. Temari gave him a small smile. Yeah, it was fun. So, maybe you'd like to do it again sometime after all. To his surprise, she bent down and gave him a quick kiss on the cheek. I think I'll enjoy it, good night. Naruto was blushing all over his face. That was the first kiss he got from a girl. He was too stunned to say anything as Temari took pleasure in the fact she seemed to have that effect on him. After all, it was nice for a girl to know she could get that kind of reaction out of a boy she was going to spend her life with. She walked away as she grinned at a thought to put a little extra sway in her hips as she walked up the stairs. Naruto couldn't help but look as she walked up. A small drop of blood was threatening to fall out of his nose. He quickly shook himself. Damn it, stop acting like Ero Sennin. Naruto went to put away the picnic stuff, and also maybe take a small cold shower as well.